Hey guys, in this podcast, we're going to cover what could go down in history as one of the greatest trades of 2024. Now, I'm not sure why this subject is not getting enough coverage, but this morning, guys, we bought Microsoft calls. Yes, we bought calls, guys. And when short sellers buy calls, I'm going to break down the whole trade in the next 10 minutes. But when short sellers buy calls, guys, that is something to pay close attention to. Last time we bought calls was on Tesla, when Tesla was trading at $238 a share the day before the election day. We told you that, hey, this is the easiest trade you could have taken. And those weekly options go 80x as Tesla goes from 238 all the way to 320 that week, guys. So don't miss out on what could actually be a greater trade than the Tesla trade. So without any further ado, I'm going to break this down to you. Now, first, we're going to talk about MSTR because this is the culprit of why this trade could even be happening. And there's good sides and bad sides to the story, so I'm going to actually share both of the sides with you guys. So, MSTR, MicroStrategy, CEO Michael Saylor, okay? Company it's an old company. I mean, it goes back in the days to the technology bubble of 2001. And for years, basically, he runs the company and tries to figure out, well, how can we create more shareholder value? And since he cannot get up the sales after 20 plus years of existence, one day he decides, well, shit. I mean, we've tried this for so long. I mean, the sales are just not growing. Earnings per share not growing. What could I do? So, light bulb moment, he says, well, why not just try this Bitcoin shit and see if it works? And basically, he comes up with a way how to convince the current shareholder base to embrace the idea of Bitcoin. First, he issues more shares. He basically creates a buyback where he buys a shitload of shares of MicroStrategy so he can create an exit to those people that don't want to be a part of the Bitcoin strategy. That's step one. Step two, okay, he begins borrowing money at a proportion that has never been done by MicroStrategy, and all of that money goes nowhere else but buying Bitcoin. Then he comes up with an option strategy for selling options, which I don't think anybody's talking about, but this is why he basically calls the MicroStrategy Bitcoin treasury a rocket or nuclear rocket of producing more Bitcoin, because knowing that when he issues debt such as additional shares or when he is selling convertible bonds to the tune of billions and billions of dollars, knowing that he is about to go buy Bitcoin, what he does is he sells options at elevated premium, and later the money that he makes from the option sales, he reinvests in Bitcoin. So it's like Bitcoin all-in approach. And at this point, he's got quite a track record to show. So applause for that. But at this point, if you listen to the last few messages devoted to MSTR, including a nice short that we've nailed above 500 all the way down to 370 level, couple other after that, the point that I have talked about in some prior podcasts was the fact that Bitcoin cannot break above 100,000 because Saylor stopped buying. All the money he has fucking borrowed went into the Bitcoin splurge. He has a history of buying Bitcoin at the tops, or very close to the top. And so that's exactly what happens. Again, the last $3 billion that he had received, he spent on buying 55,000 Bitcoins at an average price of 97,400 or 500, roughly around there. So at this point, to move the price of Bitcoin even higher, what needs to happen is he needs to get a lot of other people on board with buying Bitcoin. So right now, he is on a spree going business to business, basically an equivalent to what Herbalife would do. Herbalife is an MLM company. Basically, you got to knock on doors of some other personal consumers that are interested in losing weight. So in case of Herbalife or multi-level marketing system, it is getting other people to buy into the company with an idea of a solution to their weight loss problems. What the problem that Saylor is trying to solve for the companies is actually very timely right now, because moving forward, it is very difficult for companies to show consistent revenue growth and consistent earnings growth. So from his personal case, he can show how his company was not growing at all until he just started borrowing the hell out of everything he could to buy Bitcoin. And then based off his strategy, now his company share appreciation is absolutely astounding. So he is on a mission to sell this Bitcoin contagion right now, actually to multiple companies. And so technically it is multi-level marketing scheme or Ponzi scheme at its best, because for the shares of MSTR and all the promises or conditions under which those convertible bonds were sold to the people willing to invest, they were sold on ridiculous terms, assuming that MicroStrategy shares are going to go above $680 a share in the next 5 years. Okay, and only at that point they have the ability to cash out of those shares. Now, in order for that to take place, he has to convince some big players. In other words, he cannot be knocking door to door of individual investors. He is knocking door to door right now, convincing some big publicly traded companies. And over the weekend, he actually knocked in the doors of Microsoft, ticker MSFT, and did a presentation of how Microsoft could improve its shareholder value by as much as $5 trillion if they implement the same strategy. Now, the logic for Saylor is simple, right? Anybody could understand this. Hey, I'm a small MicroStrategy company. Now I'm going to get Microsoft on board, who will buy Bitcoin at even higher prices than what I have purchased it at. And because Microsoft is not just going to go and borrow a few $1 billion or $10 billion like I did, Microsoft can just chunk 100 billion, 200 billion into Bitcoin, which is what's basically required at this point for Bitcoin price to move substantially higher. So clearly, this is a typical MLM structure. You get into buying the product or the idea or the solution first, and then you get other people on board. But because you're coming in at a better price level, okay, you have a very much vested interest to ensure that other bigger players are coming in on board. So besides visiting Microsoft, proposing this a strategy that he's been utilizing, basically borrow instead of reinvesting money in your stock, put it in Bitcoin. Any kind of dividends that you were planning to pay your shareholders, put it in Bitcoin. Any kind of proceeds that you get from any type of bond offering, you put it in Bitcoin. Borrow any earnings per share that you're gonna make, put it in Bitcoin. It sounds like, an all-in Bitcoin, embrace everything, top play, and that's exactly what he proposed to Microsoft. And I'm sure the numbers are precise, and I'm sure the numbers assume that Bitcoin price can only go higher and higher, which by definition, at least temporarily, if Microsoft was to get on board, it is safe to say that probably other people would get on board. And considering the appreciation that MSTR shares have seen, if Microsoft was to repeat any success in what Saylor was able to accomplish for MSTR, it is safe to assume that Microsoft shares could move 10 to 20% by next week if on December 10th, which is a day for a shareholder meeting. Now, what is known right now, this is what we know, that over the weekend, Saylor pitched Microsoft on the Bitcoin idea, and Microsoft has agreed to vote on this idea on the next shareholder meeting. Now, that has not been confirmed by Microsoft, so I am speculating at this moment. But if they really meant the next shareholder meeting for Microsoft is on December 10th. And if Microsoft really was to implement this strategy, because the advantage of implementing such strategy would be shifting investor focus from earnings per share. And as you know, Microsoft's got some really huge losses in the AI area because they keep investing billions and billions of dollars, just like Meta keeps investing billions and billions of dollars. Every big mega tech company keeps investing billions and billions of dollars into the AI space, but the returns of such actions are yet to be quantified. So if some of these losses are potentially going to impact the core business profitability moving forward into 2025, this is a really lucrative offer for companies to actually take Saylor on such an offer. And if Microsoft was to vote on pursuing this endeavor fully, or even to a certain extent, I would say the dominoes will roll in a way that a lot of smaller companies that would be equivalent of MicroStrategy would actually take a note of this and would take action on this, and they would go to public markets and borrow the fuck out of everything they can, and they will put that money in Bitcoin. So there is a potential of a big player like Microsoft coming in. The advantage, again, is to create shareholder value based on this concept that, hey, we can really shift our investor focus from earnings per share, sales growth, earnings per share growth, and shift that focus towards Bitcoin metrics. And if we're successful at doing that, then, hey, it's basically going to create trillions and trillions of dollars in stock appreciation, because we could avoid a situation where if we have some bad quarters, or if the losses are coming in at a huge magnitude in relation to what the market is expecting or calculating, this could help us avoid some severe moments where stock drops. And to begin with, Microsoft stock has not been performing quite as well. Opposed to Tesla, it has not participated in the Trump rally. And so for that reason, I thought about it over the weekend, and right when the market opened at 9:30 a.m., anyone that traded with me, we went ahead and bought a shitload of Microsoft calls in 230, 250, 260 strikes going into the next few weeks of expirations. So some of these trades, you should know at the moment I'm recording this, depending on the strikes and expirations, this trade that we took this morning at 9:30 is already up 3 to 5x, depending on your execution price. So at this point, if you're taking this trade, I want to emphasize that for you, it may not be a 50, 100, or 150x trade. It's going to be less because you missed your entry. But by communicating this to you, I'm also letting you know that you should not be falling asleep behind the wheel, okay? You should be getting in touch with 30 market moves so you could get your hands on before I make these public announcements with some of these easy trades, guys. Your entry means everything. If you're paying 3, 4, 5 times more for the same option that we're buying here at 13 Market Moves bright and early, so this entry will have a direct impact on how many X your trade can run. If you're paying 5X for the same thing that we're paying earlier in the morning, it's going to take, you can still put a phenomenal trade together, but it's going to be nowhere near like the kind of entry that we had at 9:30. But to focus on the trade, okay, it is not a one direction type trade, because clearly, just to brainstorm this out loud, there's 2 things that Microsoft could say. Hey, we love the idea, okay? We want to do this, but we don't want to do this with Bitcoin at 100,000. So in this case, they could figure out some kind of way to crash Bitcoin first so Microsoft could get an advantageous entry at a much lower price. So let's not discount the possibility that something to this magnitude could be orchestrated to where we could get a huge drop in Bitcoin followed by a lightning fast move to the upside short term. And if that happens, I would attribute it absolutely to the fact that Microsoft have made a decision to be a part of this massive Ponzi gig. And, that would be the time to load up on Bitcoin, right? So as a result of this, clearly the beneficiary is Bitcoin, but you got to pull the trigger again. Your entries and exits, they mean everything. So to highlight the next point, well, what if Microsoft says no? What if the shareholders are like, well, fuck, we're not interested in doing that? Why didn't he go and pitch it to Tesla? We don't know. Maybe he did pitch it to Tesla already. Maybe he's pitching Tesla right now. What I'm saying is the guy is on a wild spree to pitch as many publicly traded companies on the idea of selling convertible bonds and putting it in Bitcoin right now, because he has a vested interest to make sure that bigger players are coming in, because that's what's going to push the price of Bitcoin higher. That's what's going to keep pushing the price of MSTR higher. But the question is, what if Microsoft says no? Then as a result of that, if the vote is negative on December 10th, okay, the easiest trade would be shorting MSTR, because if the vote is negative and a big player like Microsoft does not want to come on board with these MLM multi-level marketing Ponzi setup, or should we just call it the Bitcoin corporate contagion? So if Microsoft doesn't want to participate in this corporate Bitcoin contagion, then I think the bubble will pop on MicroStrategy, at least temporarily, just like it already did on 2 occasions in the last 10 trading sessions. And I think that could be a phenomenal trade to partake in. So it's not a single direction trade. As a matter of fact, prior to the 10th of December, that would be the other leg of the trade that we would be taking, okay? Because at that point, it becomes a trade that is based off an outcome of an event that could produce a huge directional move in either side. But I would say trading it on the call side, I would trade it on Microsoft as we did today. Trading the put side, I would not trade it. Like, in other words, if Microsoft makes a decision not to do it, it's not going to hurt Microsoft shares badly, okay? Depending on how much Microsoft shares could run between now, I'm recording this on December 2nd, how much Microsoft shares can run between December 2nd and December 10th. Clearly, if they're up 50 points and Microsoft, and it's due to the speculation that Microsoft is going to copy the MSTR Bitcoin contagion strategy, then we could get a sell-off. But if, in other words, Microsoft does its own thing and doesn't make a decision and to participate in this Bitcoin contagion, then the shares of Microsoft are not going to get hurt a lot. But the shares of MicroStrategy would take a crazy move to the downside when that decision becomes public. So there's two potential trades, and within that, of course, the outcome of trading Bitcoin futures with options itself. So there's three potentially huge trades that are in the making right now. But the fact that we're shifting in the stock market to a point where companies are basically making decisions. Hey, we don't have to produce shit. We don't have to make shit. All we got to do is go sell a bunch of convertible bonds and buy Bitcoin and create shareholder value on this Ponzi scheme on a magnitude that's never been seen in the world's history. That is a shift. That is the Bitcoin contagion that, if embraced, it's going to negatively impact the GDP, because then every company that, they can just follow this prototype and they can create shareholder value without creating anything in their business. So clearly, if this is going to work, which I believe it can work short term, and short term meaning, hey, this shit could go on for a couple of years, right? And a lot of companies would be able to get away with it. But at some point, okay, it's going to hurt the United States economy to a colossal extent, because then every company could just go and buy Bitcoin. They don't have to make anything. As a matter of fact, I'm not even sure how many employees then would companies need to have. So as a result, I think a lot of people are looking at losing jobs. We're looking at massive layoffs. Hey, nobody needs to work. We can just borrow money, buy Bitcoin, and fucking create shareholder value. We don't need to produce shit, right? So that's the kind of direction that Wall Street is heading if this is going to become a success. And it looks like right now it could get a lot of traction simply because of the fact that so many companies, okay, they're facing some downward revisions in earnings and sales numbers going into 2025. This proposition of, sell convertible bonds, put it all in Bitcoin, it could be very, very simply irresistible to a lot of companies that are sitting there right now thinking, well, shit, okay, our company shares are up now, but what's going to be in 2025? We know sales are falling off. We know, hey, the demand is not there. What are we going to do? Hey, light bulb moment. Let's fucking issue convertible bonds and buy Bitcoin, and problem is solved. So I think logically many companies are going to be interested in following the blueprint that has been successful so far. I should really emphasize so far for the MSTR. So with that said, guys, I think we're looking at some crazy times in the market, and these trades that are under the radar right now, I mean, they will catch a lot of public attention. I think you're going to hear a lot about this phenomena that's developing now from the public media over the course of the next few weeks. Clearly pay close attention to what's going to be going on December 10th, the outcome of a possible vote. Again, what we know is they agreed to actually vote on this proposal. And we're speculating that it will be on December 10th. So for that reason, that date of the vote could be changed. And if it is, I'll post an additional podcast on this, because I think this subject is simply impossible to cover in a short podcast, guys. But what's happening is absolutely insane, guys. Absolutely insane. We're living in unprecedented times as traders. With that, I believe, lies a lot of opportunity. But with that, these are crazy times. Absolutely fucking crazy times. If you think about it, what this really means for Wall Street, what this means for GDP, what this means for an average person that is not able to go and sell, $10 billion in convertible bonds at zero interest coupon. I mean, the aftermath of this is absolutely destructive. But as a trader, hey, I'd say catch the trade on both sides. I think this Bitcoin contagion will be real in the corporate America, and you could gain some serious traction in your trading account with that on the call side and then on the short side. So trade it with 30 market moves, guys. If you're not trading with a coach yet, that means you're missing some colossal trades, 10x, 20x, 50x trades. Partake in them, okay? And you can do so by going to 13mmtv.com, 13marketmoves.com. Dare to trade this insanity, guys. This is going to be absolutely fucking phenomenal. Don't miss it.